What if I told you that 85% of modern illness comes from something no blood test can detect and no prescription can cure? Have you ever noticed how some people heal rapidly while others with the same condition struggle for years, or how Himalayan monks often live well into their 90s without hospitals, pharmaceuticals, or even supplements? There's a truth here that rarely gets spoken. Healing isn't something you ingest, it's something you remember. It isn't hidden in a bottle or buried in a lab, it's already within you, waiting beneath the noise, the fear, the endless effort to fix what was never broken in the first place. For thousands of years, Buddhist wisdom has quietly revealed this. Real healing begins not by fighting the body, but by quieting the mind. And in that stillness, where breath deepens and thought softens, something begins to shift. Something ancient, primal, and profoundly intelligent. This isn't about rejecting medicine. It's about reclaiming a deeper medicine. The power of attention, the simplicity of breath, and the radical trust that your body knows how to heal, if only you'd let it. You've tried treatments. You've taken the pills. You've reached for the quick fixes. And yet, despite it all, there's still a quiet whisper inside. There must be more, and there is. Today we begin to uncover 5 eternal truths that show how a calm, clear mind can invite the body to heal, gently, naturally, and fully. But before we begin, pause. Let go of what you think healing should look like. Release the timelines, the labels, the pressure to get better. Because what comes next might not just change your path, it might return you to it. Your body doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be understood. And maybe, just maybe, it's been trying to communicate with you all along. Why is it your joints ache the most after an argument with someone you love? Why does your stomach twist before a difficult conversation? Have you ever considered that your body isn't malfunctioning? It's speaking. In Zen Buddhism, we don't rush to repair. We slow down to listen, because sometimes pain isn't the enemy, it's the messenger. The Buddha once said, "Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional." What he really meant was this: the body will feel discomfort. That's part of life. But when the mind begins to resist it, fear it, label it, that's when suffering is born. And here's the twist. Healing doesn't begin when you do something. It begins when you stop. Stop fixing. Stop forcing. Stop running. And simply feel. Because when you feel fully, without judgment, without panic, you reconnect with the intelligence that has been there all along. The healing doesn't come from effort. It comes from presence, and that changes everything. Healing begins the moment you stop asking, "How do I make this go away?" and instead begin to ask, "What are you trying to show me?" That single shift in perspective opens a doorway most people never even realize exists. Let me share something personal. For nearly 4 years, I lived with a quiet, invisible weight pressing on my chest. It wasn't exactly pain, but a pressure, as if something heavy had taken up permanent residence over my heart. I did everything right. I went to doctors. I adjusted my diet. I experimented with supplements. Every test came back normal. And yet nothing about the way I felt was normal. Then one evening, in the stillness that follows a long day, I decided to just sit. No goal, no fixing, no chasing answers, just breath and presence. And in that silence, something unexpected surfaced, a memory I hadn't touched in decades, the loss of my father, grief that had never been processed, words that had never been spoken. I didn't fall apart. I didn't sob uncontrollably like a movie scene. I simply wept, quietly, dignified, as if my body was finally being heard after years of whispering through symptoms. And then, something extraordinary happened. The next morning, the tightness in my chest had softened. It hadn't vanished, but it no longer screamed. It had been acknowledged. And sometimes, that's all the body needs to begin healing. So many of us walk through life treating our bodies like battlegrounds. We try to conquer fatigue, we numb pain, We override tension. But here's the truth that changes everything. Your body isn't fighting you, it's fighting for you. Every symptom is a signal. Every signal is a request. And every request is asking, simply and patiently, please listen. Even modern science is beginning to agree. Research from Harvard shows that up to 90% of all doctor visits are related to stress, not because stress is just in your head, but because it literally reshapes your biology. It rewires your brain. It weakens your immune system. It tightens your muscles and inflames your gut. And yet studies also show that just 10 minutes of daily mindfulness, 10 quiet, intentional minutes, can begin to reverse that damage. That's not mysticism, that's measurable. Still, here's what they don't print on prescription bottles. Healing is not just biological, it's deeply emotional. Psychologists have found that repressed emotions, especially grief, shame, and anger, often manifest as chronic physical symptoms. What the mind suppresses, the body expresses. It shows up as aches that never quite go away, sleep that stays just out of reach, a heartbeat that feels too fast or too loud. And maybe, just maybe, that's not because you're broken. Maybe it's because you're carrying truths you've never spoken aloud. You might be thinking, but I've ignored this for years. How could listening help now? And here's the most beautiful truth I can offer you. The body never gives up on you. It waits. Quietly. Patiently. Like a loyal friend you haven't called in years, but who still picks up the phone with warmth the moment you do. Healing doesn't demand perfection. It asks only for presence. Even the law of attraction echoes this wisdom in its own language. Your body, like the world around you, responds to the vibration you hold most often. If your inner dialogue constantly says, I'm falling apart, that belief doesn't just shape your thoughts, it starts to shape your cells. But imagine, just for a moment, if your new inner mantra became, I am healing, I am learning, I am listening. That small shift, subtle as it may seem, is the doorway, not to escape, but to return, to remember, to reconnect. There's an image I love to share with my students, a visual that helps anchor this truth deep into the heart. Imagine your body as a wise old tree. Its roots run deep. It holds memories in its bark, its scars, its growth rings. It doesn't bloom by force. It blooms when the conditions are right. Sunlight, stillness, space. You don't fix a tree, you nourish it, and it heals. Now, I know what you might be thinking. If my body is a tree, why does it creak like an old wooden chair every morning? Fair point. But even the creakiest trees still reach for the light. You are not broken. You are a miracle in progress. But only if you stop treating your body like a machine and start honoring it like a sacred temple. And if you've been waiting for a sign to change how you treat your body, this is it. Tonight, try something simple. Place your hand on your heart, close your eyes and say, I'm here now, I hear you. See what rises. Most people will never do this. They'll keep chasing fixes and missing the whispers. But you're still watching. And that means you're already different. You're already listening. But listening is only the beginning. What happens when we're not just dealing with symptoms, but grieving the body we used to have? That's where we're headed next. Let's keep going. Why we suffer more as we age. Have you ever noticed how quickly a child can bounce back from a fall, but how slowly an adult recovers from a disappointment? What if the pain of aging wasn't coming from the body, but from the stories we attach to it? And here's the uncomfortable truth. It's not your wrinkles, your knees, or your memory that's aging fastest. It's your belief system. Let's begin with something Buddhism teaches with unwavering clarity. Suffering doesn't come from what happens to us. It comes from our attachment to how we wish things would stay. In modern life, we're conditioned to worship youth. We chase it, inject it, filter it, and fear its loss. Aging, in this cultural script, becomes something to resist at all costs. But in Zen, impermanence is not a threat. It's a teacher. It's not something to fear, but something to bow to. Think of a tree in autumn. It doesn't mourn the falling of its leaves. It lets go with grace, trusting that what falls away creates space for what's next. Aging, then, is not decay. It's a return to essence. It's a process of clarifying what truly matters. But the real suffering begins when we resist this truth, when we start whispering to ourselves, I shouldn't feel this tired, or I used to be able to do this, or I look so old. These internal scripts don't just drain joy, they literally affect your biology. A landmark study from Yale found that adults who held positive beliefs about aging lived, on average, 7.5 years longer than those who didn't. That's more than the added longevity from quitting smoking, exercising, or eating vegetables combined. So you can take all the vitamins you want, but if your internal narrative says, I'm falling apart, your cells are still listening, and they are obeying. I once met a woman, 78 years old, who radiated life, not in the I run marathons and run an organic farm kind of way, but in a way that made you want to sit beside her just to bask in the peace she carried. I asked her what her secret was. She smiled and said, I stopped believing I was old. The body ages, but I say thank you every time I wake up breathing. She wasn't in denial. She had arthritis. Her hands shook when she poured tea. She'd lost her partner. But she had something our culture rarely celebrates. Dignity. That quiet, unshakable grace that comes not from being perfect, but from being present. Psychology confirms what many ancient traditions have long known as people age. What hurts most isn't the body, it's the feeling of becoming invisible, irrelevant, or past one's prime. When we lose our sense of meaning, our nervous system begins to dim its signals. The body slows down, not just from age, but from emotional withdrawal. And yet, connection can reverse this. Purpose is the true elixir. Studies show that even simple roles like mentoring, volunteering, or planting a garden can light up brain regions associated with joy, reduce pain perception, and improve longevity. It turns out, purpose isn't a luxury, it's a vital sign. From a law of attraction perspective, this makes even more sense. What we expect, we invite. If your internal dialogue says, it's all downhill from here, then yes, it will be. But if you believe, my best years are spiritually unfolding, then you begin to attract people, energy, and opportunities that reflect that frequency. Your outer reality starts to mirror your inner belief. Here's something that may challenge your current thinking. Your body is not betraying you. It's maturing you. It's not falling apart. It's peeling away what's no longer essential. Just like the lotus rises from the mud, this stage of life can be your awakening, not your ending. Think of aging like the ripening of fruit. When fruit is young, it's firm, shiny, maybe a little sour, but when it ripens, it softens, it sweetens, it deepens. It becomes nourishing. In the same way, your soul is ripening. You are becoming medicine for others, if you choose to see it that way. And no, ripening doesn't mean we suddenly love every creak, every crack, or every chin hair that shows up uninvited. Acceptance isn't always glamorous, but it is liberating. Aging doesn't ask us to celebrate every flaw. It asks us to shift the narrative from fear to reverence, from resistance to relationship, from control to trust. Let's be honest, some mornings feel like a game of what new sound will my body make today? A crack here, a creak there, a mysterious groan you're sure didn't exist yesterday. But here's the beauty. When we stop resisting and start smiling, even the aging process becomes lighter. Most people will spend their lives chasing youth like a ghost, wasting precious energy on mirrors, memories, and regrets. But you, yes you, you're choosing something different. You're choosing to wake up. And that choice already makes you rare. That choice already makes you free. Take a moment now and ask yourself, what belief about aging have I inherited that no longer serves me? Maybe it's the idea that aging means fading, or that wrinkles equal weakness. Write it down. Burn it. Or better yet, replace it with something that restores your truth. Every year I grow wiser, lighter, and more connected to what truly matters. In Buddhism, we often speak of beginner's mind, a state of openness, of meeting each moment as if it were entirely new. That means even at 60, 70, or 80, you are not running out of time. You are running deeper into the truth. You're not becoming less, you're becoming distilled. But let's take this even further. What happens when we've made peace with aging, yet still carry emotions we never had the chance or safety to express? That's where the real healing begins, because some wounds don't come from the body at all. They come from silence, from suppression, from years of quietly holding what was never meant to be held alone. Let's take a deeper breath. We're ready to go further. So, how does the mind create physical pain? What does Buddhism teach us about the mechanics of suffering? Imagine you've just stubbed your toe. The pain is instant, sharp, a lightning bolt of sensation shooting through your nerves. This is the first arrow, as the Buddha would call it, the raw, unavoidable pain of being human. It's the body's alarm system, wired into our biology to protect us. But then something else happens. The pain doesn't just stay in your toe, your mind grabs hold of it. You curse your clumsiness. You worry that it's broken. You play the moment over and over again. And suddenly the pain has multiplied. It's no longer just a sensation, it's a storm. This is the second arrow. The first arrow is life itself. The headache, the broken bone, the ache of loss, the stiffness of aging. But the second arrow, that's the one we shoot ourselves. The story, the resistance, the fear, the fixation. It's the emotional suffering that grows from the seed of physical pain. And what's remarkable is that modern neuroscience now maps this experience in the brain with startling accuracy. When we obsess over pain, when we ruminate, worry, or resist it, a region called the anterior cingulate cortex lights up like a distress beacon. This part of the brain doesn't just register pain, it interprets it, personalizes it, amplifies it. Studies on chronic pain patients have shown something startling. In many cases, the original injury has long since healed, yet the brain continues to fire pain signals, not because the body is still damaged, but because the mind remains trapped in the loop. Pain becomes a habit, a belief, a protective pattern etched into neural pathways. The brain, trying to help, keeps warning of danger that no longer exists. And this is precisely where Buddhist wisdom and modern science converge. Both point to the same truth. While we may not control the first arrow, we always have a choice about the second. We can meet pain with curiosity instead of panic, with breath instead of blame, with presence instead of resistance. In that space, healing begins, not because the pain disappears, but because the suffering no longer owns us. The Buddha taught that suffering arises not from the pain itself, but from our relationship to it, from the mental grip of craving and aversion. Neuroscience now calls this catastrophizing, the mind's tendency to spiral into worst-case scenarios, turning a twinge into a crisis. In MRI scans, meditators who practice detachment, observing pain without resistance, show remarkably different brain activity. Their pain signals don't vanish, but the secondary suffering, the mental torment, dissolves. They've learned, as one Zen master put it, to let the pain be pain without letting it become agony. One of the most striking proofs of this is phantom limb pain. Amputees often report vivid, excruciating sensations where their limb used to be a cramping hand, a burning foot. Even though nothing is there, the brain, confused by the missing input, creates its own reality. This phenomenon reveals something profound. Pain isn't just a message from the body, it's a story the mind tells itself. And just as the mind can create pain, it can also uncreate it. Studies on placebo analgesia show that belief alone, the expectation of relief, can trigger the release of the body's natural painkillers, endorphins, dulling sensations that should, by all rights, hurt. At the heart of this is the default mode network, a web of brain regions that light up when we're lost in thought, replaying the past or worrying about the future. In chronic pain patients, this network is often stuck in overdrive, feeding a loop of why me and this will never end. But meditation quiets this chatter. When you focus on the breath, on the present moment, the grip of the narrative loosens. The pain might still be there, but it's no longer the main character in the story of your life. So how do we apply this? The Buddha's path offers clear steps. First, mindfulness, noticing the pain without judgment, studying it like a curious scientist. Is it throbbing or sharp? Does it shift or stay the same? This simple act of observation creates space between you and the sensation, breaking the identification that turns pain into suffering. Then there's metta or loving-kindness meditation. Instead of fighting the pain, you send it compassion, as if comforting a wounded child. Remarkably, this isn't just poetic imagery. It changes your brain. Studies show metta practice strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the brain's regulator, helping it override distress signals. And finally, the breath. The Anapanasati, one of the Buddha's core teachings, is a guide to using the breath as an anchor, a way to steady the mind when the body rebels. Slow, deep breathing, around 6 breaths per minute, triggers the vagus nerve, flipping the nervous system out of fight or flight and into rest and digest. This isn't just relaxation, it's a biological reset. Inflammation drops, muscles unlock. The brain's pain maps start to rewrite themselves. Tibetan monks take this even further with Tonglen, a practice where they breathe in pain, their own and others, and exhale relief. At first, this seems counterintuitive. Why invite suffering in? But the act transforms it. By meeting pain with openness, instead of resistance, they dissolve its power. Modern research backs this up. Tonglen practitioners show lower levels of inflammatory markers, as if their bodies have learned to metabolize suffering into something softer. The ultimate lesson here is radical but simple. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. The body will ache, age and break. That's the deal of being alive, but the mind doesn't have to add layers of torment. When we stop fighting, when we stop telling ourselves how unbearable it should be, something shifts. The pain might not vanish, but it stops being the enemy. It's just another sensation passing through, like weather in the sky. And in that space, there's a kind of freedom. The freedom to hurt without being destroyed by it. This isn't about denying pain or pretending it doesn't exist. It's about changing the channel in your brain from this is unbearable to this is what's happening now. And in that shift, there's a kind of healing. No pill can replicate it. The Buddha called it the end of suffering. Neuroscience calls it neural reprogramming. But the result is the same, a life where pain doesn't get the final word. The weight of unspoken emotions. Your liver remembers your anger, your gut stores your fear, your chest, your grief. But here's the real question. What happens to a body that's never allowed to cry, or worse, one that's been trained to smile through everything? Let's not sugarcoat it. In the Zen tradition, we don't bypass emotion in the name of peace, we sit with it. We bow to it. Because what you don't feel, you can't be free. And what you avoid emotionally, your body will eventually carry physically. Here's something I often say to my students. Your body is not just flesh and blood, it's your autobiography, a living scroll that stores every unspoken goodbye, every stifled scream, every swallowed, "I'm not okay." Think about that. How many years have you been collecting what you were too busy or too scared to release? I once guided a woman in her 60s through her first silent meditation retreat. On the second day, she broke down in tears during walking meditation. When I gently asked what surfaced, she said, "I just realized I never got to grieve my mother. I was too busy taking care of everyone else." That moment changed her, not because she cried, but because for the first time, she allowed it. Buddhist teaching reminds us, suffering is not the enemy. Suppression is, like stagnant water in a still pond, What is unexpressed begins to rot. Emotion, when blocked, becomes inflammation. Thoughts become tension. Silence becomes sickness. Silence becomes sickness. Now let's zoom into science for a moment, not to overwhelm you, but to validate what ancient wisdom already knew. Epigenetic research shows that unresolved trauma can switch on or off certain genes, affecting not just you but your children and grandchildren. In other words, what you don't release, they might inherit. And here's the kicker. Psychologists have long understood the body-mind connection, but recent studies now confirm that people who suppress emotions are more likely to suffer from chronic illnesses, autoimmune conditions, and even heart disease. On the flip side, practices like expressive writing, talk therapy, and somatic meditation aren't just nice things to try, they actually reduce cortisol, balance heart rhythms, and even regulate immune responses. You don't need to scream into a pillow every night, but you do need to give your emotions a seat at the table. Most people think strength means keeping it all together. But real strength is allowing things to fall apart on purpose, not dramatically, not for attention, but quietly, authentically, like a tree shedding its leaves, trusting spring will come again. Let me share something personal. There was a time when I went through a period of deep exhaustion. I was teaching, guiding, and caring for others, but I was numb. One evening, I finally sat down with no distractions, and out of nowhere tears came. Not sadness, not despair, just the sacred release of decades of holding it all in. I cried for 30 minutes, and afterward, I didn't feel weak. I felt real, alive, light, like I'd finally come back into my body. Now let's talk vibration. You cannot attract wholeness from a fragmented heart. You cannot manifest peace. If grief is locked in your chest, energy is honest. What you resist persists, but what you embrace transforms. When you choose to release, to soften, to feel, your vibration changes, and the universe, like a mirror, reflects that healing, people, opportunities, peace. We've been lied to, taught to fear emotions, taught that vulnerability is weakness. But the most powerful people I've met were the ones who weren't afraid to feel deeply, because once you've made peace with your pain, nothing can be used against you. Now I'm not saying you have to become a crying machine. No one wants to be the person sobbing over a burnt piece of toast. But let's face it, we've all had days when it wasn't about the toast, right? Here's the tragedy. Most people will carry these emotional weights until the very end, never realizing they were optional. But you're different. You're watching this. You're feeling something stir. That's not a coincidence. That's the invitation. Imagine your body as a house. Every unspoken emotion is like a box shoved into the attic, forgotten, but still leaking its energy. Eventually, the weight of what's unspoken starts creaking through the floorboards, and one day, you hear the house whisper, "Please unpack me." Tonight, write a letter to your body. Ask it, what have you been holding for me, without thanks, without rest, without my attention? You might be surprised at what it says back. In Zen, we say that when you sit in true stillness, your deepest truths begin to rise, not to punish you, but to purify you. This isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. Now that we've begun releasing the old, what happens when we learn to meet each new moment without fear, without resistance, without the past? That's what we explore next, because the present moment is not just peaceful, it's profoundly healing. Let's keep going, deeper now, into where the real pain hides. The body keeps the score. It always has. You wake up with your jaw clenched, your shoulders tight as stone. There's no obvious trigger. No fresh wound from the day before, nothing happened, and yet your body holds this tension like a shadow you can't shake. Or maybe it's subtler, the way your stomach knots at a certain tone of voice, or how your breath shortens in a crowded room for reasons you can't explain. These aren't just quirks or random reactions. They're messages. They're trauma, unspoken, unwitnessed, written into the muscles, buried in breath, encrypted into posture. Your conscious mind might forget, but the body, it never does. Modern psychology now affirms what ancient traditions have always known. Trauma doesn't live in your memories alone. It embeds itself into your nervous system, into your muscle fibers, into the very cadence of your breath. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk named his groundbreaking book The Body Keeps the Score for this exact reason. Because trauma is not just a story you tell or suppress, it is a full-body experience. But centuries before brain scans, somatic therapy, or polyvagal theory, Buddhist teachings had already mapped this invisible terrain. The Buddha spoke of sankharas, the mental and physical formations that shape our lives. These aren't abstract ideas. They are the literal grooves carved into our being by unresolved experience. Pain leaves traces, and when it is left unacknowledged, those traces become patterns. Take something as simple and as profound as a child raised in a household of yelling. The mind may grow up, rationalize, even forget. But the body remembers. As an adult, the sound of a raised voice might trigger a racing heart, sweaty palms, a desperate need to flee. The reaction seems irrational, but it's not. It's the nervous system doing its job, responding not to what's happening, but to what once happened. This is the fingerprint of trauma, and neuroscience confirms it. The amygdala, the brain's alarm system, detects even the subtlest echoes of past threat and sounds the sirens. Stress hormones flood the system. The prefrontal cortex, the rational mind, doesn't even get to weigh in. The body responds before thought, and sometimes without it. Buddhist psychology has a term for this space, where raw sensation meets emotional charge. Vedana. It's the pre-language layer of experience where trauma often lodges, silently shaping our reactions, decisions, and relationships. Tibetan medicine takes it even further, mapping specific emotions to physical organs. Grief in the lungs, fear in the kidneys, anger in the liver. These aren't poetic metaphors. They reflect an embodied reality. Chronic tightness, dysfunction, or pain in these areas often correlates with emotional wounds that were never fully felt, much less healed. A 2019 Columbia University study found that patients with repressed childhood trauma were significantly more likely to suffer from autoimmune disorders. It's as if, when the soul isn't heard, the body begins to speak louder, sometimes even turning against itself. So where does trauma hide? Everywhere. In the hunch of your shoulders, still bracing against an old blow, in the shallow breath that never fills your lungs, left over from a freeze response you didn't know you had. In the insomnia that whispers danger into the dark, long after the danger is gone. Somatic therapist Peter Levine calls these trauma capsules, pockets of undischarged survival energy stuck in the body. And here's the key difference between us and the wild animals we once were. Animals release trauma. A deer escapes a predator and then shakes violently for several minutes, discharging the fear from its system, resetting its nervous system. But humans, we don't shake. We suppress. We rationalize. We endure. And the body pays the price. Not because it's weak, but because it's wise, and it won't stop calling until it's finally heard. The Buddha's path offers a way out, but not through talking or analysis. Healing begins with embodiment, relearning how to inhabit the body without fear. The Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha's discourse on mindfulness, starts not with lofty philosophy, but with simple instructions. Observe the breath, notice sensations, become present in the flesh. This isn't avoidance, it's the opposite, turning toward what's been exiled. Modern therapies like sensory-motor psychotherapy now echo this, guiding clients to track physical sensations as a gateway to unresolved trauma. The principle is the same: the body speaks in murmurs before it can shout. One of the most striking examples is the psoas muscle, deep in the core, nicknamed the muscle of the soul by yogis. It's our primary fight-or-flight connector. When it tightens in danger, chronic tension here, common in trauma survivors, can lead to back pain, digestive issues, even anxiety. But you can't think your way out of a clenched psoas. You have to feel your way out. Trauma release exercises, like those developed by David Berceli, mimic the body's natural shaking response, allowing trapped energy to discharge. It's no coincidence that these movements resemble the spontaneous tremors of Kundalini awakening or the cathartic shakes of ecstatic Buddhist rituals. The body knows how to heal. It just needs permission. Breath, too, is a bridge. Trauma disrupts respiration, holding the breath, shallow chest breathing, keeping the nervous system stuck in threat mode. The Buddha's Anapanasati mindfulness of breathing isn't just meditation, it's neural reprogramming. Slow diaphragmatic breathing signals safety to the amygdala, dialing down the alarm. Studies on holotropic breathwork show that controlled hyperventilation can access repressed memories stored in the body, not as stories, but as physical releases, tingling, heat waves of emotion. This is the language of trauma unwinding. Then there's movement. In Tibetan Buddhism, true core yogic exercises are used to release psychic knots, blockages where emotional pain crystallizes into physical tension. Modern trauma-sensitive yoga adapts this wisdom, using deliberate postures to reclaim agency in the body. A 2014 Harvard study found that yoga was more effective than medication for PTSD in some cases, not because it erased memories, but because it rewired the body's relationship to them. But perhaps the most profound key is compassion. Trauma thrives in shame, the belief that the body betrayed you by freezing, or that you're broken for still carrying scars. Metta, loving-kindness meditation, directly counters this, teaching the body that it's worthy of care. A 2021 study showed that PTSD patients who practiced metta had faster regulation of stress hormones. It makes sense. Trauma isolates, love reintegrates. Healing isn't about erasing the past, it's about changing its weight. The body may keep the score, but it also holds the remedy, if we're willing to listen, to touch the places that hurt not with judgment, but with curiosity, to breathe into the tightness until it softens, to tremble, shake, or weep, if needed. Letting the body do what it's waited years to do. Release, as the Zen saying goes. The way out is through, not around. The pain doesn't go over it, but straight into its heart, until what was once frozen thaws back into life. The healing power of present moment awareness. What if the cure isn't hidden in some expensive therapy, next year's wellness trend, or tomorrow's sunrise? What if all the energy you've spent chasing healing was distracting you from the one place it's always been available, right here? Let's pause for a second. In Zen Buddhism, we say the past is memory, the future is imagination. Only the present is real, but most of us are living as if the opposite is true. We replay old regrets like a broken film. We fast forward into imagined fears that haven't even happened. Meanwhile, this moment, the only one that's real, slips by unnoticed. Like a friend, we keep standing up. Here's the twist that still surprises many: suffering doesn't just come from pain, it comes from time travel. From mentally living in yesterday's grief or tomorrow's worry. In the body, it pays the price. Tension, fatigue, shallow breath, racing thoughts. Because when the mind is out of sync with the moment, the body tightens in defense. Zen teaches this elegantly: this moment is not a stepping stone, it's the destination. Peace doesn't come when things are perfect. It comes when we stop waiting for things to be different. Scientific truth backs this up beautifully. A Harvard study showed that people spend nearly 47% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're doing, and that mind wandering is strongly correlated with unhappiness. But here's the empowering part. Just 10 minutes of mindfulness a day can significantly lower blood pressure, reduce anxiety, and increase gray matter in areas of the brain linked to memory and self-awareness. Yes, rewire your brain by breathing with awareness. Let me share a moment from my own life. Years ago, I fell into a habit of over-planning. Every day was a strategy to fix my health, my schedule, my future, supplements, routines, schedules, always calculating what's next. But one morning, I sat outside under a Bodhi tree I had planted years before. I wasn't meditating. I wasn't doing anything. I just watched the leaves, felt the wind, heard my breath, and in that stillness, something profound happened. I realized that for the first time in weeks, my jaw wasn't clenched, my stomach was calm, my heart open. Healing came not from planning, but from presence. Psychologically, this makes perfect sense. When you're in the present moment, the mind has no choice but to pause the what-if spiral. Presence interrupts the loop of fear, it resets the nervous system, it gives the inner child a safe place to rest, and from a law of attraction standpoint, your vibration is always now. The universe doesn't respond to your words, it responds to your frequency. If you're constantly focused on what's missing, what hurts, or what might go wrong, you amplify that reality. But when you come into the now with gratitude, with breath, you begin to emit the energy of trust, and trust is magnetic. Now I know what some of you might be thinking, but I've got bills, pain, deadlines, aging parents. I can't just sit and breathe all day. You're right, and you don't have to. Because presence doesn't mean pausing your life, it means showing up for it fully. You can wash dishes with awareness. You can feel your feet in your shoes as you walk to the mailbox. You can speak to your spouse, your child, your neighbor, and listen. Presence is not a technique, it's a return. Think of your mind like a snow globe. When you shake it, everything's a blur, confusion, chaos, overwhelm. But when you stop shaking, the flakes settle, clarity returns. Stillness reveals what was always there beneath the storm. Of course, staying in the present doesn't mean becoming a monk on a mountain. Some days, just brushing your teeth without checking your phone deserves a round of applause. Small wins, friends. That's how peace builds momentum. Most people will continue to search for healing in the next guru, the next gadget, the next green juice. But you're learning the secret that now is enough, that this breath contains everything you need to begin again. You don't need more time, you need more presence in the time you already have. Because the moments you're fully alive in, they multiply, they expand, they change your chemistry, your memory, your legacy. Try this tonight. Set a 3-minute timer, sit down, no music, no phone, just breathe. With every inhale, say silently, now is safe. With every exhale, now is enough. Let that be your anchor, your medicine, your moment. In Buddhism, we don't chase the future. We invite this moment to reveal its gift, because peace doesn't arrive like a package on your doorstep. It awakens when you do. So now that you've reclaimed the present, let's talk about something even more powerful than awareness. Let's talk about meaning, because your body doesn't just respond to breath, it responds to purpose. Let's explore that next. Rewiring your nervous system with breath. You're sitting in traffic, late for an important meeting. Your chest tightens, your heart pounds. Your thoughts spiral into catastrophe. Then you remember to breathe, not just inhale and exhale, but breathe deep, slow, intentional within minutes. Your pulse steadies, your muscles unlock. The crisis hasn't changed, but your body's response to it has. This isn't just calming down, this is rewiring, for thousands of years. Buddhist monks, yogis, and healers have used breath as the ultimate tool to master the mind and body. Modern science now confirms what ancient traditions always knew. Breath is the remote control for your nervous system. Every inhale and exhale directly influences your brain, your heart, and even your genes. The Buddha called this anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing, and taught it as the foundation of liberation from suffering. Today, neuroscientists call it neural hacking, the fastest way to shift from stress to peace, from chaos to clarity, the biology of breath. Your nervous system's reset button. Your autonomic nervous system has two main modes. One sympathetic, fight or flight, activated by stress, danger, or overwhelm. Heart rate spikes, muscles tense, digestion shuts down. Two parasympathetic, rest and digest. The healing state, heart rate slows, muscles relax. The body repairs itself. Trauma, chronic stress and anxiety trap. You in sympathetic overdrive. You can't think your way out of this. The rational mind is overruled by primal survival circuits, but breath is the back door. When you consciously slow your breathing to 5 or 6 breaths per minute, about half the normal rate, something remarkable happens. The vagus nerve, your body's superhighway of calm, fires signals to your brain, switching off panic mode. Heart rate variability, HRV increases, a key marker of resilience. Navy SEALs train this to stay calm under gunfire. Gamma-aminobutyric acid, GABA, the brain's natural Valium, surges quieting mental chatter. This isn't relaxation, it's rewiring. Studies show that just 20 minutes of slow breathing daily can reshape stress responses in as little as 2 weeks. The Buddha's breath, ancient science of liberation. The Anapanasati Sutta is one of the Buddha's most essential teachings, a 16-step guide to awakening through breath. Unlike modern breathwork trends, this isn't about flashy techniques, it's about relationship using breath to dissolve the illusion of separation between mind and body. 4 stages of transformational breathing from the sutta. 1. Counting the breath. Simple awareness, I am breathing in, I am breathing out. This alone reduces amygdala hyperactivity. 2. Following the breath. Noticing its path, cool at the nostrils, warm on exhale, the rise and fall of the belly. This builds introspection, the lost art of feeling the body from within. 3. Calming the breath, letting it lengthen, deepen, smooth out. This directly triggers the parasympathetic nervous system. 4. Liberating through breath, observing how breath dissolves mental fixation, revealing the impermanent nature of all experience. Modern research validates this progression. A 2018 Nature study found that breath awareness, steps 1 and 2, reduces mind wandering, while slow breathing, step 3, lowers cortisol by 30%. Advanced meditators, step 4, show gamma wave synchrony, a state of hyper-awareness linked to insight and bliss. Breath as medicine. 3 practices to rewire your state. 1. The 4-7-8 method. Instant calm. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 7 counts. Exhale for 8 counts. Repeat 4 cycles. Why it works. The extended exhale activates the vagus nerve, stronger than any other pattern, used by monks and Navy SEALs alike. 2. Nadi Shodhana, alternate nostril breathing. Close right nostril. Inhale left 4 counts. Hold 4 counts. Close left, exhale right, 8 counts. Repeat reversing nostrils. Why it works. Balances left logical and right, emotional brain hemispheres. A 2020 study showed it reduces anxiety faster than benzodiazepines in some cases. 3. Tummo, inner fire breathing. Tibetan secret, rapid, forceful inhales through nose like sniffing, passive exhales. 30 breaths, hold breath, at the top. Visualize, fire at the navel. Why it works. Triggers brown fat activation, boosting metabolism and focus, used by Himalayan monks to raise body temperature in freezing caves. The ultimate truth: you are not trapped. Most people live as prisoners of their nervous systems, reacting to life with habitual stress, fear, or shutdown. Breath is the key to the cell. The Buddha didn't teach breathwork for peak performance or stress relief, though those are side effects. He taught it as a path to awakening, to realizing that you are not your thoughts, not your trauma, not even your body. You are the awareness behind it all. Every conscious breath is a step toward that freedom. Every exhale a release of what no longer serves you, and every moment of presence a rewiring, not just of neurons, but of destiny itself. Start now. Inhale as if your life depends on it. It does. Exhale as if letting go of everything you are. Repeat until the prison walls dissolve and only sky remains. The healing power of purpose. People don't just die of illness. They die of hopelessness, of feeling unnecessary, forgotten, unseen, and often, of not remembering why they want to live in the first place. It's a hard truth, but it's one we need to say out loud, without purpose. Even the healthiest body starts to fade, but with purpose, even a tired body finds new strength. In Buddhism, there's a teaching called right livelihood. It's not just about your job, it's about the energy behind what you do. It's the idea that when your actions align with your heart, peace follows, and that peace is healing. But let me clarify something. Purpose doesn't mean launching a foundation or writing a best-selling book at 72. It can be quiet, gentle, personal. Purpose can be, I want to teach my granddaughter how to bake, or I want to keep tending to this little garden I love. The lotus, after all, doesn't bloom from manicured soil. It rises from the mud, from darkness. That's where strength is born. Let me share a story I'll never forget. I once met a 92-year-old monk who still taught early morning meditation every single day. I asked him, "Why do you still wake up at 4 a.m. to teach?" He smiled, tapped his knee and said, "Because teaching is why my legs still work." He wasn't joking. His purpose wasn't just in his mind. It had embedded itself into his cells. And science confirms this. A groundbreaking study by Dr. Patricia Boyle at the Rush Alzheimer's Disease Center found that seniors with a strong sense of purpose were 2.4 times less likely to develop Alzheimer's. Another study from JAMA showed that people with high life purpose had lower mortality rates and fewer chronic illnesses. In short, your why may be more powerful than your what. You may have been told healing means slowing down, but sometimes healing means waking something up. Not your schedule, not your productivity, but your sense of being needed, valued, connected. From a psychological lens, this is powerful. Pain without purpose feels unbearable, but pain with purpose becomes a kind of sacred fuel. It gives a story. It makes life feel like a path, not a prison. I once worked with a retired nurse who fell into depression after leaving her job. She said, "I feel invisible now." But when she began volunteering just one morning a week, reading to children at the library, her posture changed, her voice brightened. She told me, "It's like my body remembers what I'm here for." Purpose is the most magnetic force you can emit. When you're aligned with something that feels true, life starts to conspire in your favor. You attract the people, energy, and circumstances that reinforce your momentum. It's not superstition. It's vibration, and it begins the moment you choose to mean something to someone or something. Think of your purpose as the sun. You may have cloudy days, you may forget it's there, but when you turn toward it, everything in your inner garden begins to grow, even if slowly, even if silently. The body responds to warmth, especially the warmth of meaning. Of course, I'm not saying you need to reinvent the world at 70. Let's be honest. Some mornings, just finding your reading glasses feels like a full-time job. But meaning doesn't have to be heavy. Even making someone laugh today can be your sacred work. So no, the question is not, how many years do I have left? The real question is, what will I bring to the years I have? You're not done if you're still breathing, you're still becoming, and becoming is medicine. Most people never ask this question. They live out their later years waiting for something to fix them. But you, if you're still watching this, you're not waiting, you're remembering. That's rare. And that's powerful. Tonight, write down one reason you still want to wake up tomorrow. Even if it's small. Even if it's just, I want to see the sunrise. Let that be enough. Let that be the beginning. In Zen, we don't chase purpose like a prize. We discover it moment by moment in service, in silence, in joy. You are not too old. You are not too late. Your why is still whispering. All it needs is your ear. So now we've explored awareness, emotion, belief, and purpose. And there's only one thing left to bring it all together and let it land in your heart. Let's take this journey home with something astonishing, yet entirely real. The placebo effect, proof that the mind can, and often does, heal the body. Imagine this: a patient suffering from debilitating knee pain undergoes surgery. The surgeon makes an incision, performs what appears to be a full procedure, then carefully stitches the skin closed. But here's the twist: none of it was real. The scalpel never touched the actual tissue, no part of the knee was altered, and yet, weeks later, that same patient is walking without pain, convinced the surgery cured them. This isn't science fiction. It happened in a groundbreaking 2002 study at Baylor College of Medicine. Patients who received sham surgery for osteoarthritis improved just as much as those who underwent the actual operation. This is the placebo effect in its most dramatic form, but it plays out in subtler ways every single day. A sugar pill lifts depression. A saline injection calms tremors in Parkinson's patients. A fake scent triggers a full-blown allergic reaction. These aren't flukes. They're deeply human responses. They are living proof of what Buddhist teachings have whispered for millennia. Perception shapes reality. The Buddha said, "Mind is the forerunner of all things." Now, neuroscientists echo this in their own language, mapping in fine detail how belief rewires biology. When a placebo works, the brain doesn't just imagine improvement, it produces real chemical change. It releases opioids, dopamine, and anti-inflammatory compounds directly into the bloodstream. MRI scans show that placebo-induced pain relief activates the exact same neural pathways as morphine. The healing isn't in the pill, it's in the perception. It isn't fantasy, it's a function of the human design, the intelligence of the body responding to the signal of belief. Take the astonishing story of Mr. Wright in 1957, diagnosed with terminal cancer. He was given just days to live. Desperate. He received an experimental drug called crebiozin. Within days, his tumors reportedly shrank to near nothing. Then he read a medical report claiming the drug was ineffective, and the tumors returned. In a bold move, his doctor administered injections of plain water, telling Wright it was a new, improved version of the drug. Once again, the tumors disappeared. But when Wright finally read a definitive report condemning crebiozin as a complete failure, his hope dissolved, and he died just days later. His body followed the story his mind believed. His own consciousness was both the medicine and ultimately the executioner. Science now reveals how this happens. Expectation alone can trigger the release of endogenous opioids, the body's natural painkillers, which bind to the same receptors as morphine. Functional MRI scans show that the placebo effect engages the prefrontal cortex, which then instructs the brain to reduce activity in regions that process pain. Placebos have been shown to increase dopamine production in Parkinson's patients, reduce inflammatory cytokines in people with autoimmune disease, and even produce measurable changes in brain structure for individuals with depression. This isn't about tricking yourself, it's about recognizing that the mind and body are not separate. They are dance partners in every moment of your life. What you expect, you invite. What you believe, you begin to embody. And just as Buddhist practice teaches us to examine the nature of thought, to watch it arise and pass without clinging, it also invites us to plant seeds of wise belief. Belief not in fantasies, but in your own inner capacity to heal, to change, to grow beyond what you were told was possible. You were never broken. You were never beyond help. The power was always closer than your next breath. Healing is not a destination, it's a return to presence, to trust, to the understanding that what lives in your mind lives in your body too, and when you align the two with love, attention, and belief, what once seemed impossible begins to unfold as natural. This isn't psychological trickery. It's not some mental sleight of hand. What we're talking about is the mind directly influencing physiology through a process researchers now call remembered wellness, the body recalling what it feels like to be well and responding accordingly. But there's a darker counterpart to this phenomenon, the nocebo effect, where positive expectation can heal, negative expectation can actually harm. In one chilling Italian study, participants were told that an electric current might give them a headache. No current was ever applied, yet 80% developed headaches anyway. Another study found that women who believed they were at high risk for heart disease were nearly 4 times as likely to die of cardiac arrest, regardless of actual medical factors. Beliefs don't just influence health, sometimes they determine survival. The implications of this go far beyond medicine. They suggest that what we often consider fixed biological reality is actually a conversation between mind and body. Chronic pain patients, for example, frequently show no sign of tissue damage. Their nervous systems have simply learned to send pain signals in the absence of injury. Asthma sufferers can have full-blown attacks from fake allergens. Even the process of aging, once thought to be purely mechanical, may be shaped in part by expectation. As we've seen, those with a positive view of aging live, on average, 7.5 years longer. That's not wishful thinking, it's measurable biology. So how do we harness this power rather than be at the mercy of it? First, we become aware of our unconscious health beliefs, the subtle, inherited stories about what our bodies can and cannot do. Second, we begin to cultivate what researchers call positive expectancy, not blind optimism, but a grounded, resilient trust in the body's capacity to heal. Practices like meditation and mindfulness strengthen this trust by deepening mind-body awareness. Ritual matters too. Studies show that placebo injections outperform placebo pills, and placebo surgeries outperform both, suggesting that the more immersive and convincing the healing context, the more powerful the physiological response. Perhaps most revolutionary is the rise of open-label placebos, where patients are told outright that they are taking sugar pills and yet still experience real benefits. This shatters the long-held belief that deception is necessary for placebo to work. Instead, it suggests that the healing lies not in trickery, but in the very act of care, in the ritual of treatment, in the trust between practitioner and patient, in the willingness to believe in one's own capacity to heal. In one Harvard study, IBS patients who knowingly took placebo pills, after being told how the mind can influence the body, saw a 59% improvement in symptoms. That's nearly double the improvement of patients who received no treatment at all. The placebo effect, then, is not an illusion. It's a mirror, a revelation, a glimpse into our untapped potential. But it also highlights our vulnerability to the effects of pessimism, disconnection, and unexamined beliefs. Every time we uncritically accept a diagnosis or internalize a grim prognosis, we may unknowingly activate a biological nocebo. Conversely, when we meet our bodies with mindfulness, curiosity, and compassion, we invite something sacred, the possibility of unexpected recovery. This is not a rejection of medicine. It's an invitation to realize that all healing is ultimately self-healing, that even when medicine intervenes, it is your body that does the repair, and that the most powerful pharmacy isn't in a cabinet, it's in your consciousness. As we stand at the intersection of modern neuroscience and timeless spiritual wisdom, one truth becomes undeniable. The mind is not just a passenger in the body, it is the driver. And when we learn to steer with intention, the entire organism responds. The placebo effect isn't an anomaly to be explained away, it's a roadmap. It's the body whispering, "I remember how to be whole, I just needed you to believe it too." Healing doesn't always require more effort. Sometimes it requires less doing and more being, more presence, more trust. So as you move forward, don't rush to fix what's not broken. Ask instead, what part of me needs more attention, more kindness, more breath? Let your actions say, "I'm here, I'm ready, I'm paying attention." Let your body feel your love in every step, every sip of water, every moment of rest. If this stirred something in you, pause before you scroll on. Hit like, leave a comment, follow for more. But most importantly, tell me what part of yourself are you learning to cherish again. Because healing isn't about fixing flaws, it's about returning to wholeness, to calm, to the real you that's always been there, patiently waiting to be seen.